the kind of recurring theme, if you like, from your formative years, to your work in Uganda, of course, to your work at the International, and of course, right now, being at the helm of an organization like ActionAid, an esteemed, very reputable sort of organization that is dealing with all kinds of institutions across the world. I think you have 3,000 staff, almost 3,000 sort of social movement partners across the world.
Yeah.
Of course, you occupy a very strategic position. But one thing I've picked up beyond being a Secretary General, you spoke about from young days being, a child of teachers, as it were, right?
Yeah.
And what they taught you was the values of humility, engaged in public service, particularly in education. So when you educate a child, you're educating a society for the next 100 years, right? So that's so it's public service for the greater good.
Yeah.
And then you spoke about as you were moving into civil society, you started to appreciate, Arthur, and the values of respect, the values of equality, and the principles of justice.
Yeah.
Now, these things, Arthur, from a civil society perspective, sorry for the long introduction, but these things are always futuristic.
Yeah.
For example, in ActionAid, we say we're fighting for a world free of injustice and poverty, right?
Yeah.
When will that come? That's obviously, kind of in the future, but on a day-to-day basis, Arthur, what does this mean to you?
You see, our lives and our stories are built over a period of time. We live our lives every day, and there is no story unless you live it every single day. So whatever we believe in, whatever we stand for, needs to be reflected in our everyday life. This is very, very crucial. You can't have a grand plan that all of a sudden will just, land from heaven. We need to keep life simple, real, and live it every day. This is crucial. That's why it's very important that the values that you have listed and you have recollected must be reflected in our daily lives. So let me just start with this idea of humility, because that's very much connected to the formative conversation we had the other time. And for me, humility is an acknowledgement that you are one in a sea of many, and that you can only make a contribution and not attribute anything or everything to your, role. You need to understand that for the cumulative impact on anything to be realized, it's a product of different people's contributions. In leadership, this is very, very central to this idea of redistributive leadership, servant leadership, because as opposed to the kind of alpha and omega type of leadership that many people often seek to build, when you are a humble person and you truly believe in humility, you just understand that you make your contribution and value everybody else's contribution. So every single day I wake up, I know that I have limits as a person, and that I need others. Human beings, social animals, we live together with others. So each and every day is an opportunity to learn from others, to be better because I've listened to you, to be better because I can learn from your experience. This is what makes you humble, because you don't have all the answers. And so my routine every day, I wake up, I say a prayer, because I acknowledge that the Almighty is more powerful. He can make or break my day. I surrender sometimes to the will of the Almighty. That is an acknowledgement that I am one small piece. When you put an insect on a ball, and rotate the ball, the insect might not feel anything, because the universe is huge. For each and every human being, the world is turning around every day. Well, we don't feel it because we are really very small parts of this universe. This is what life is, because each and every day, you are one small part of the day. So I wake up, I surrender, I pray to God, and just say, keep me well, remove any obstacles that might cause me problems. That's a surrender. That's being humble, and that's acknowledging that there is a power out there that is above you. I take my children to school, and when you take your children to school, you drive on the road. There are many other people. You must respect rules. You can't say, oh, because I am whatever I am, I'm a Secretary General, I have a right to, there are rules on the road. Be humble and respect those rules. And when we don't see people respecting these rules, we cause problems, not just for yourself, but for others. So I think this is one way in which humility reflects in everyday life. When I speak about this in the context of an organization like ActionAid, because this is a central value, it's one of the 7 values that ActionAid truly believes in. And the subtext of this value in ActionAid's understanding is that as an organization, we are humble because we know we only can make a contribution. When we talk about projects or programs or interventions that we do, we sometimes debate a lot in the development sector about inputs, outputs, outcomes, and impact. To be very honest, you can make an input. You can be really in charge of your input because that's what comes from you, your resources, your capacity, and all of that. Maybe to some extent, you can have some control over the output. To some extent, not all of it, because an output also now will depend on many other things outside, but certainly not outcome, not impact. So we make a big mistake quite often in organizations in development that we do log frames and start defining impact and outcome. It's impossible because you cannot attribute a big change in society to one little input from ActionAid. So again, we must be humble, and this is what ActionAid means by saying we should be humble and know that we can only make a contribution. We will learn from people living in poverty. We can learn from people who are facing oppression. Every single day, an encounter with a rural woman that we want to support, young women who are working in industries and all of that. Every single encounter is an encounter of learning. That is being humble and respecting our value of humility each and every day. So that's just a start with this whole humility value. You talked also about public service, and very much connects to the formative years again. We spoke about the last time round. And, we don't exist for ourselves, There's a quote that is often attributed to the Pope, which says something like, the river doesn't drink its own water. And many other examples of things. The mountain doesn't celebrate its height. We, as human beings, as leaders, actually exist for others. Our success, like I mentioned the other day, should be reflected in the smiles, the hopes, and the celebrations of others. So in a way, a lot of what we do is a public offer for the betterment of society. So I cherish very much public service, even within government. I think our own governments and people who work with public service sacrifice so much because they do it not for themselves, but for others. I think that's the essence of why we have this orientation on the public and the public service. So if you have an orientation to serve the wider public, you take care, of course, of yourself, but also realize that it's not just your fulfillment, it's not just your happiness, it's not just what you get out of what you do, but what the public benefits from what you offer as an organization, as a leader, as an individual. So I think this is very crucial because at the end of the day, no human being of themselves is self-contained. We exist, we have our different talents, and so it's a combination of all of these talents and relationships that make us human. So that's why public service is really very, very crucial. And again, on a day-to-day basis, you need to know that you go to office, you respond to an email, you need to gauge what impact whatever decision you're making is going to have on the wider public. I've read a lot about ActionAid even before I joined it, and there's one really crucial symbolic I don't know how to call this. It's like a gesture. It was a practice we used to have a lot in ActionAid. In a table like this, we have 4 chairs here. If we have a meeting and there are 4 participants, we would add a 5th chair. And this chair would simply be empty. The reason why this was done by ActionAid for a long time is to realize that as management, as board, as colleagues, when we meet the 4 of us, there is somebody invisible that we actually exist for. Who is that person? It's the life of the person in the rural area, the life of the person in the peri-urban area. It's the youth, it's the widow, it's the farmer, you know, it's all these people in the community that we exist for, that we fundraise for, that we wake up every day for to try to make, their lives different. So this person, this chair was a symbol of this person. So each and every time we had a conversation about anything, I need to keep in mind that it's not about us. We have the privilege and the honor and the responsibility to serve others. And hopefully we can revive this practice because it's been a while since I have heard and seen this in any country, but it speaks very deep into the ethos of public service. And so both at individual level and organizational level, I take great pride in this practice. On the question of justice, justice is so central to what ActionAid believes in, and respect. Respect runs through our feminist leadership principles. And again, I think respect is very much connected to humility as well, because in many ways, respect comes from the understanding that each and every person's story matters. Many times we are misunderstood, but everyone has their own story, has their own truth about themselves. Sometimes we are unable to express it, maybe because of language, maybe because of other constraints. But when I see you, Gino, first and foremost, I respect you as a human being, as a person who has a story. My story and your story put together makes a big difference to both of us. So I respect you first and foremost because you do have a story that matters to me. I think the principle of Ubuntu in Africa is very central to this. So that's very important. Secondly, like I said, the last time we talked, my faith tells me that every single human being is made in the Almighty's image, in God's image. Each and every person on earth, the person on the street, the beggar, the disabled person, the blind, people you might think are not successful, each of them has a God in them. They are made in God's image. So if I have respect for the Almighty, I must have respect for that person. Quite often, when I drive on streets and beggars come, people who are on the streets come, quite often the reaction is, oh no, don't do that because you keep people on the street. You do not know their story. You do not know why they are there. Just respect the fact that they can even come to you and ask. So I never question anybody's story because that is their truth. That's their experience. I cannot replace it. When we talk about rights and equality of women, when we talk about having feminist approaches and all of this, we must respect the story of women. I cannot, I've said quite several times that I cannot be truly a feminist because I don't live that experience. I can be an ally. I can support. I can respect. I can do whatever. But the authentic experience that sometimes women go through in our society, I cannot pretend. I cannot pretend to even live a fraction of it. So I must respect that story. I must respect each and every person's story. So that again lives every single day. Your own child, your own children have their own story they are building. You have no control once they come onto Mother Earth. You have contributed to bringing them, but they have their fingerprint is different. It's not like yours. They are beginning their own story. Respect that. My son challenged me one time when I was saying, I'm saving for the future. He said, no, you are already living in your future. The future is the future is ours, which again tells us that each and every day, don't wait for some future. You are creating it as you move every single day. So it's really important that you pose this question, that you pick some values, Gino, and say, how do we express it every single day? Because that's how we build our encounters. Each and every encounter, every day is important. You may never know why. You may never know why I was late. You may never know it, but it's an encounter in a day that I should learn from. So that, again, takes me to the final value that you mentioned earlier, which is about justice. I truly believe that we as human beings are made equal. Okay. It's but different, equal but different. There's a difference between those. And sometimes I feel we go overboard in trying to make our difference a problem. I cannot be Gino. Gino cannot be Arthur. It's impossible because we are all made in a different way and in a special way. Now, if we are all made, equal as human beings, why should we live lives in which my privilege is attained at the expense of yours. This is central to the question of justice. Once, as a human being, your happiness depends on oppressing others, then you're not living the true essence of why we are human. And so every single day is an opportunity to correct injustices that as a result sometimes of history, sometimes as a result of systems that we create. So I have this everyday eye towards what I see as unjust, whether it's to a child, whether it's to a street child, whether it's to a woman, whether it's to a man, whether it's to people who are, differently abled. We need to make sure that everybody can live a life of dignity. And a life of dignity cannot happen unless there's justice for all. That's why it's again another central value and principle for ActionAid. When we see injustice anywhere, like Martin Luther told us, injustice anywhere, it is a threat to justice. So everywhere. So I believe that we should be completely intolerant to injustice whenever we encounter it. A parent beating up their children for no reason. It happens in our neighborhoods. It happens. You should pick concern when you hear a child in the neighborhood crying uncontrollably. Find out if that is really an injustice. Pick concern, because tomorrow you might be the one crying, and if you don't care about others, then nobody will care for you. So where we see injustice, please respond in whatever sensitive way you can, but don't let injustice pass by. Not any minute, not any hour, not any day, because tomorrow it might be you. So I think this again is very important for us to live each and every day. And from an organizational perspective, we work very hard for communities that are often less privileged. And our vision is around the idea that each and every human being is entitled and has a right to a life of dignity. Okay. What does that mean? When we face injustice, there is no dignity. When we face oppression, there is no dignity. So ActionAid's philosophy and its cardinal pillars of operations, they have such a strong alignment with my own, core beliefs as a human being. That's why I'm very comfortable in the organization, because I know that I'm in a place that I'm in an organization whose heart and soul is in the right place to serve humanity and to work for justice. So I'm here by choice and not because I have no other options, like we said the other day. So I think that's very, very paramount for my own journey and my own fulfillment as a person.
That is so deeply, deeply profound. And I find it, if I may use the word, deeply spiritual, because it comes from a very beautiful place, somewhere inside that body. I don't think it's from the head. I think it's from the heart. Yeah. So that's really, and I think so well articulated, Arthur, in the way that you weaved all of those principles, if you like, and they're not exhaustive. We just picked up a few that we sort of we spoke about in the last conversation. You were able to weave it in, including the traffic in Johannesburg. So that was really, really brilliant. I really appreciated that. What I thought we could just do in the remaining few minutes. Somebody once said to me that Arthur is too kind. And I think it was raised in the context of it being a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have to be a leader of people, Arthur.
Yeah.
And then my intervention was, Buddha, many thousands of years ago said, what the world needs is kindness.
Yeah.
And if you could say it then,
Yeah.
I think, I was trying to say, well, almost 2,000 years later, I think,
Yeah.
it's relevant today.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that? And purely just in relation to the kind of, the values of humility, public good, public service, equality, justice. How do you see just, the act, the art, if you like, or the praxis of kindness in everyday life?
Yeah. Yeah. So, first of all, I think that sometimes we make an error in equating kindness with weakness. In many exercises I've done in leadership by, different facilitators, they ask several questions and then kind of plot where you're supposed to be. Quite often, I fall in a quadrant that is described as people-centered, And because of that, first of all, I truly believe that people and human resources are the most important resource any organization can have. More than money, more than infrastructure, more than it's people. So I am kind, and I have no apologies for that, because I believe that love and kindness is what can truly change this world. And I mentioned the other day one of my idols, Mother Teresa. She is the one who, in her own humility and in her own humbleness, told us that a piece of love every single day can make a big difference to someone else. So I believe that to be kind is a natural calling of being human, to be kind to others. Again, it comes back to this very idea that despite all our problems, we do have privileges. I think I've lived in privilege. I've been privileged to live the life I've lived, even if humble as it is. And so I believe that showing kindness to others is an invitation for people to be kind to me too. If this world was ruled by love rather than might, as we see, imagine if the people behind the genocide all over the world loved one another. Just think about it, If I loved the Palestinians the way they deserve to be loved, if the Russians loved the Ukrainians loved the, People in Rwanda loved the ones in DRC. We would not be in war. I think love is the answer. And kindness, being kind to people, is part and parcel of this expression of love for one another. I think it sounds simple, but it's profound. Because if you just think about it, any single problem that we have in the world, if we showed love to one another, we would solve this problem. We would solve this problem. So I think when the comment was made about me, maybe it was in the context of, oh, we need to take tough decisions about this and that, and I've done that. I can take tough decisions with love. I can take tough decisions with kindness. You know, being tough doesn't replace your obligation to show love and to be kind to others. They are not mutually exclusive. That kindness equates weakness, not at all. So I think it would be interesting to reflect with the people who said this 2 years or whatever time ago, and say, okay, so what has happened? This kind leader, has he delivered? Has he taken the decisions that needed to be taken? But definitely, I do take tough decisions sometimes, but I need to take it with respect, with dignity, filled with justice, but more importantly, with love as well.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think many of us can vouch for that, right?
Yeah.
That we see it, not just, this is not preaching as such, but it's also very much part of your practice.
Yeah.
Just last question.
Yeah.
Have you ever been angry?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I have.
And demonstrated your anger.
Yeah.
And people could see it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very unlucky.
Yeah, it's rare. It's rare, but when I'm angry in the public space, I mean, I rarely show it, but when I can't control, it gets reflected. I think there are a few meetings, tough meetings, that people wrote to me afterwards a text message and said, oh, we have never seen you this angry. And then I reflect back and say, okay, maybe I could have acted differently. But sometimes it's just human. It's human to be angry, and but most of the times where I express my anger, is during sports. I have smashed the screen before, when Nigeria was playing with Italy in 1998 World Cup. I was just so angry. I think Italy was playing Nigeria in the World Cup in 1998, and I just felt like Nigeria should have won, and I was so angry. And I stayed in my room, for 2 days without getting out, just so upset, like and my mother was very worried. And of course, she used to bring me food through the window, but I was so upset for 2 days. But after that, I then said, but none of these Nigerians even know me, really. Why am I getting so upset about this? But I think it's a natural expression, and managing anger in a way that doesn't offend, that doesn't create pain for others is a very important virtue, especially in leadership, because angry people create pain for others, either directly or indirectly. And so anger management is a very important attribute for anybody who holds a position of influence, a position of care for others.